This is your average Joe Utah sports fan podcast. Welcome to your average Joe Utah sports fan podcast. I'm your host, Eric Lund. Today I'm going to talk about why it's time for fans in the state of Utah to turn the page on Kyle Whittingham. All right, we need to get into both the good and the bad. Okay, state of Utah sports fans, let's jump into this. Kyle Whittingham is one day likely to be a Hall of Fame college football coach. So let's give credit where it's due. Kyle Whittingham was the head coach of the University of Utah football program for 21 years. And he came in with a bang. He had an undefeated season leading to a BCS bowl buster against one of the biggest names in all of college football, Nick Saban and Alabama. What better way to start off than doing that? Kyle Whittingham then took the University of Utah football program from the Mountain West Conference to Pac. Now, it started off a little rocky, but he really leveled up the University of Utah football program. He got them competing pretty early on at a high level against the likes of USC. He started off having not a historical rivalry, but a pretty intense rivalry with what was considered one of the best programs in the conference. And it went back and forth and back and forth. He also started competing against Oregon, and that was also a really nice friendly rivalry with one of the best programs in the Pac-12 conference. In shorthand, he had the University of Utah football program competing at such a high level that they were competing in the Pac-12 championship game. He started off against Washington. They lost the game, but soon enough, they were competing 4 straight times, and to the point that they won back-to-back Pac-12 championships. I mean, it was incredible. The University of Utah was really humming at a high clip. That's all thanks to Kyle Whittingham and what he's able to achieve. And he did that, bringing in lesser talent to the program than what other programs had. You look at programs like USC, Oregon, Washington. These teams were littered with 4-star players and 5-star players. And Kyle Whittingham was able to take lesser talent, develop that talent, and get those guys beating these other teams chock full of supposedly better talent. So that speaks to what he was able to do at the University of Utah. And not only that, but the talent evaluation that he and his team were able to do was just incredible. They were ahead of their time in terms of being able to do that compared to what the other teams in the Pac-12 were able to do. And the type of culture that Kyle Whittingham had at the University of Utah, the physicality that his teams played with, especially in the trenches, they would really beat on other teams and they would wear them down. And it was known that the week after you played Utah, the teams were still physically exhausted. And in a lot of cases, this spilled into the opponents and how they played the week after, that they'd be fairly worn out going into their next games. And in some cases, it would even have the effect where they would lose their next week's games because of the physicality of playing against Utah. So nobody really enjoyed playing against Utah because of the physicality. And that speaks to what Kyle Whittingham was able to do with his team and getting them prepared to play physical, dominant football. That was part and parcel of a Kyle Whittingham football team. The idea also that he was able to get his teams to come together and be what he called, you become us, we don't become you, breaking them away from who they thought that they were and committing wholly and completely to the philosophy of Utah. That was very much driven by Kyle Whittingham and got them to be what he wanted them to be at the University of Utah. Now, beyond the back-to-back Pac-12 championships, I think one of the biggest accomplishments that Kyle Whittingham had was in that Ty Jordan, Aaron Lowe gun death situation. for most coaches, that could have crippled their team, but he was able to bring the players together and really help them through these tragic gun death situations. It really wasn't about the play on the field. It was about helping them just go through this horrific situation, to help them deal with it, to help them internalize it, to help them emotionally through it. It was a really awful time, and it really speaks to his leadership that he was able to help these young men through it, and he did it. And that is a real credit to Kyle Whittingham's character. So that is really, I would have to say, one of his biggest accomplishments as a coach and a leader and as a man. Now, I would also have to say that a big accomplishment that he had is his coaching tree. As you look at all these coaches like Kalani Satake and Gary Anderson, and you look at these guys and what they've been able to do with their own coaching after they've left Kyle Whittingham, and they've been able to go on and coach other programs, and they've done a tremendous job. So I look at all the coaches that he's developed, and there's just a huge list of these guys, and he's developed a lot of guys in his image, and this very physical football, this very defensive-minded football. And so I think that that speaks to what he's been able to do and create as well. Now, we have to also address the bad side of Whittingham, because for the good, there's also some bad. And so the flip side of this is his philosophy was wearing thin on a good portion of the Utah fans. Now, what do I mean by that? So his philosophy about playing not to lose instead of to win. Now, what does that mean? So there are a lot of coaches who they get up a touchdown or two touchdowns, and then they just continue to hit the gas and want to score more and more and more. Well, with Whittingham, he scored a touchdown, and he wasn't seemingly as interested in scoring another touchdown as he was running the ball and just trying to chew up clock. And as he was chewing up clock and trying to hold the ball as long as he could so the other team wouldn't get another possession, what that did is it led to a ton of stress, at least for fans, that the game didn't really get won until late in the fourth quarter. And although he won a lot of games came down to the wire where the game wasn't won until late in the fourth quarter because of this playing not to lose instead of to win, ball control sort of philosophy. And so it was super stressful. And fans, of course, really wanted him to score more points and to make you feel better going into the fourth quarter, thinking you've got more points on the board instead of thinking, oh my gosh, are we going to score again? I don't know if we're going to score again. I'm just feeling like all this stress on me. So that really created a lot of friction with the Utah fan base. And going with that theme of ball control, but he also disdained the idea of passing the ball unless he was absolutely forced into a situation where he had to do that. And passing the ball is absolutely counter to the idea of running the ball, because when you run the ball, it eats up a lot of clock. But if you pass the ball, it doesn't. And so if you pass the ball, even if you score, it puts the ball back in the hands of your opponent. But according to Whittingham, if you pass the ball, you're more likely to turn the ball over. So there are a couple of bad things, right? So it doesn't eat up very much clock, and the likelihood of a turnover is higher, whether that is an interception, whether that is the defense somehow stripping the ball away from the quarterback, whether you're taking sacks, so you're losing field position. He sees all these things as negatives with the passing attack. So he doesn't like it, and it just doesn't fit with his philosophy of football. So he wants to run it, he wants to eat the clock, he wants to control the game. And so this was a frustration with Utah fans. But going along with that, because he wasn't big into passing the ball, because he didn't have a downfield threat, defenses would stack the box. They would put safeties in the box. They put cornerbacks in the box. They would be blitzing their cornerbacks. And so because he was so insistent on having a run game, then it made the run game even harder because the youths would not try to pass it downfield. And this was also a source of agitation and frustration for Utah fans. Also, another source of infuriation, I would say, the longer he was coach, was he didn't share information. Now, there are a lot of coaches who don't open their practices to the media. He really did not open his practices to the media. And the longer this went on, the less he allowed his coaching staff to talk to the media. He let a few very trusted ones do so. He let some players talk to the media, but it was very few and far between. And he very much was the one who controlled what information was out there and what the narrative was about his football program. But the thing that really incensed Utah football fans was injuries. And the thing that really put football fans over the top was the lack of information about Cam Rising and back-to-back years when it came to Cam Rising's knee injury coming out of the Rose Bowl game and his knee injury from that. And then after Cam got hurt against Baylor and his hand injury, and, it seemed from rumors going around from the injury in Baylor that, his hand might be okay, he might return. But as we found out later, it was a very serious injury. So that caused lots of ire with Utah fans. And even when the Big 12 came out with a injury report, it still has been this cloak and dagger about what information is really being reported from Kyle Whittingham and his staff that is accurate or not. That causes a lot of ire among Utah fans. Now, the other thing that has been interesting is recruiting. Whittingham has long said that recruiting is the bedrock of his program. But what we've seen over the years is that there are places where it wouldn't make sense for recruiting to work, and then it heated up really, really rapidly. So one would think, and I'm talking about the pre-NIL era. So, for example, Arizona was a place that was basically moribund and dead. It had been a losing team for a decade, one of the most losing teams in all of college football. And suddenly Jedd Fisch shows up. And immediately upon his arrival, he's able to recruit 4-star players left, right, and center. It made no sense whatsoever. So he gets all these 4-star players at a place that was one of the worst teams in all of college football. Same thing with Herm Edwards. ASU was just a middling team in the Pac-12. But Herm Edwards shows up and he's able to get 4-star players. Okay. Then we've got Jonathan Smith up in Corvallis. Once again, Oregon State is not this great team in the Pac-12. It's okay, but he's able to recruit 4-star players. And then you look at Utah. Utah is a championship caliber team in the Pac-12. And for whatever reason, you're not able to see Utah land these 4-star players. And they should be able to do that. They are known to have one of the best defenses in the country. So that's their strength. They should be able to land 4-star players on the defensive line, on the edges, in the backfield, right? In a safety, in the corners. It should be easy for them to do this, especially when they're a championship contender in the Pac-12. But why is this not happening? You got Jedd Fisch over in Arizona in his first year landing 4-stars, and Utah's not able to do this. It's hard to figure this one out. What is it that Whitt is pitching that is inconsistent with what Jedd Fisch is pitching? Like, Jedd Fisch is a great salesman apparently, because wherever he's pitching, it's working out there, but it's not working out for Utah. Something seems strange in what's going on with recruiting when it comes to Kyle Whittingham. He should be able to draw these players in, but whatever he's saying, it isn't working. So anyway, that also is a little bit sour when it comes to what Kyle Whittingham's been doing at Utah. Anyway, so it's fair to say that Kyle Whittingham will be a college football coach, Hall of Famer one day. He's accomplished a tremendous lot at Utah. He's been phenomenal as the head coach there, but it's also fair to say that there were some things that were rubbing Utah fans the wrong way over the years as he coached there for such a long time. Anyway, please let me know what you think about Kyle Whittingham and his tenure at the University of Utah as head coach for 21 years. Do you agree with my overall assessment on the pros and the cons? Do you have other things that you think about him that I missed out on? I look forward to your comments. Thanks so much for giving me a listen. If you enjoyed this segment of the Your Average Utah Sports Fan podcast, please give it a like and hit the subscribe button. And I look forward to seeing you again.